Hello and welcome back. In the last part, we built this world generator that allows you to create a level using numbers. Today, we're adding a player, but before we can start programming, we first need to make some changes to the two files for our assets. Simply follow the steps below and make sure you do everything exactly as described. First, I will replace the old word data list with a simpler one, since the older one also includes embellishments like backgrounds that the player shouldn't react to later when I add collisions. Perfect. We see a somewhat simpler world. First, I add an empty player class with an init and an update method. I'm not implementing movement yet, just the structure so we can draw the player. Now I load the sprite with PyGame.image.load and set self.image to that raw surface. For now, I create self.rect equals self.image.get_rect, top left equals x, y, so the player has a position. Now we'll create an update method. Later, we'll incorporate moving, gravity, and collision into this update method, but for now, we'll just draw the player. Now we can create an instance of the player and call the update function. For this, we need to give the player an x and y position. And if we start the program now, we see that it works. We see a player on the screen. But there is another problem, and to visualize it for you, I will briefly draw the player's hitbox. Look, the red debug rect is much larger than the visible sprite because the PNG has transparent space. That breaks collisions. To fix this, we use the function getBoundingRect. This removes transparent padding and makes the hitbox match the visible pixels. Perfect. Now let's test it. The next thing we will add is physics. For that we need self.speed, self.vel_y, self.in_air and self.jump. These are the physics state we'll use next. I expand update, so it reads pygame.key.get_pressed, computes dx and dy, but for now only use the input to change dx and then still just split the player. This lets you see the intended movement before physics and collisions. And finally, we add the dx and dy values to the player. And we can see it works. We can move the player to the right and left. But I find it a bit too fast, so I'm changing the speed to 5. So, now let's add a slightly more difficult part, the jump. And what also cannot be missing is gravity. And if we start the program now, we should be able to jump and fall. And so that we don't remain in a state of euphoria forever, I will include a check that requires the button to be reset first. Let's start adding collisions. For that, I would draw the hitbox of each tile. We now see the hitbox of each tile in green. Let's start working on the collision. Now the collision loop. For each tile rect in world.tile_list, we check for collision. We check the Y direction with collidirect. If vel_y less than 0, we hit a ceiling. Set dy to tile.bottom minus self.rect.top and self.vel_y to 0. Else we landed. Set dy equals tile.top minus self.rect.bottom and self.in_air to false. Perfect. The collision in the y direction definitely works. For the x direction, we can simply copy the code and don't need to change much. If collision found, set dx to 0 so the player can't move into walls. However, I accidentally overlooked something. The collision in the y direction above the player isn't working yet because I accidentally called it if instead of elif. There is one thing we can still change, namely with the jump, that we need to check whether the player is in the air or on the ground. I've left that out so far so that we can jump. I've changed the level a bit so we have a little more to jump around in. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give a like.